pronounce one name.
Yes.
You and I have been doing this perfectly, by the way. Happy to be joined by Colby Wilson. And Colby, I know you are UK and it's Big Blue Nation over there, but for everybody who does not know, I think Patrick and I, we've learned this the city that holds the Kentucky Derby is pronounced
Louisville.
Exactly.
Yes, Louisville.
Louisville. Yes. Yes.
Louisville. Like, you got to kind of like swallow your tongue a little bit.
None of this Louis.
Yeah.
I don't know who Louis is.
They will get on you over here for saying Louisville. So I learned pretty quick.
Exactly. Number one, thanks for joining us. And number two, let's talk Kentucky basketball now. We said during the break, it felt like a fake out. It felt like everybody's attention was going to go from football to basketball. But then after a couple of rough ones on the court, it might be football might be the main thing. But let's talk basketball now because it's most recently on our minds. A big one over at Madison Square Garden against a really, really good Michigan State basketball team that came out red hot from outside. What'd you make of Kentucky's not only the game in and of itself, but the matchup in the way they played?
I mean, I think it was a shock to everyone going into this game. I would say that most people favored Kentucky just with their pace and their shot making ability, and then they go on the floor and it's the opposite of what you see. It's actually Michigan State who controls the pace, who's making shots that it actually never made coming into this game. And again, Kentucky just looked not like itself. I think the hard part is people are now questioning, well, what is Kentucky this year? Because I don't think any of us have quite seen that yet. Absolutely.
For Kentucky, it feels like this team seemingly underachieving regarding to a lot of people, because I hate to even use the word underachieving when you play a 35 game season and we're now 4 games in. But I know people there, obviously they bleed blue and it's basketball all the time. What's the general consensus of this year's team, obviously knowing that there's still so much runway left?
You know, it's funny because here at Kentucky, it doesn't matter how many games you have left, whether you have 1 or 17, they want you to win, and that is the expectation. So it really does feel like when it rains, it pours. I mean, it feels like the world is coming to a crumble for Big Blue Nation and Kentucky fans here. I mean, you see what you would expect from fans. You see the fire Mark Pope. You see just complete chaos because it's not the expectation, especially for a team that the numbers flying around that they spent $22 million on this roster. So when you throw in a number as big as that, it's also like, well, what is going on? Because this is not $22 million that we're seeing on the court right now.
It's like the whole Alabama thing with Kalen DeBoer. The expectations are so high coming in. But speaking of a guy that did have expectations coming into this season, Otega Oweh, preseason SEC Player of the Year. It kind of just feels like to me he hasn't really found his footing yet this year. What have you made of his play so far?
Yeah, I mean, Patrick, you're right on the money. It's the same thing that everyone's thinking here. Almost like, what is Otega Oweh doing? How is he even contributing? You go and watch these games and he hasn't even been the standout guy really at all throughout the few games they've had this season. Obviously he had the 12 against Michigan State, but in terms of just being the projected SEC Player of the Year and being the go-to guy that is taking over, nobody has seen that. It's definitely been a shock to most people here. And you know, it was kind of crazy after the Michigan State game when he had his press conference. He just said that the one thing holding him back is his own personal effort, which can be a big red flag for somebody with so many projected accolades going into this year to come out and say, at the mecca of college basketball and on the national stage, it's effort that's holding you back. That's something that you personally can control. And so I think that was also kind of a little nerve-wracking for Big Blue Nation, and I'm sure the rest of the country.
Is in your opinion, and I'm going to kind of expand this argument or expand this topic a little bit further, we've seen the hype when it relates to college athletes as it relates to a guy like Arch Manning, a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, who came in through for over 4,000 yards last year, and I know I'm going cross sport, but for a guy that has so much hype, do you think it just takes a little while, it takes 9, 10, 11, 12 games for all of these young guys to match those expectations? I think you used the word that it might be a little concerning that he's using the word effort because it's something you can't control. Or do you think that this is like a bigger thing where he actually morphs into the player that he's supposed to be? Or is this something that you should be more concerned about if you are Big Blue Nation?
I think people are concerned because he should be the elite player that this should be his peak time right now.
Yeah.
He obviously tested the NBA waters, didn't know if he was going to pull his name out of the draft, ended up pulling his name out of the draft, I'm sure because he was hearing from NBA teams, you got A, B, C, D to work on. So I think it is concerning because also the way we saw Otega Owe last year is not the Otega Owe we're seeing this year. He's looked like he struggled a lot more. The shots that once fell are not falling now. And overall, he just doesn't look like himself from an effort, from an attitude perspective. So I think if there's any time to lose your mind for Big Blue Nation and the rest of the country, I think they have every right to do it right now because he should be at his elite level of play in these moments.
Absolutely. And Coach Mark Pope, considered he put the same blame on himself for everything that has happened there. We'll turn the table to another coach in football with Mark Stoops and what this football program is doing right now. Obviously, coming up with a big game this week against Vanderbilt for Kentucky fans who now have their eyes on maybe a bowl game. What's the consensus over there with this slight turnaround here for this football program?
Again, I think this fan base is just complete shock across the board. You have Kentucky football who was 2-5 going against Tennessee just like a little over a month ago to now you have 5 games. And if you go on the road and beat Vanderbilt or Louisville, you are headed to a bowl game. And then you have Kentucky basketball who obviously is not getting wins you would expect. So I think it's just chaos here, but definitely excitement coming from this football program. Especially just talking to the coaches and players in these press conferences leading up to the game on Saturday. Of course, they're trying to stay level-headed, but they certainly know what's at stake going into this game on Saturday. But the excitement is there. I think for them, it's just sticking to what got them to this point. Obviously, something has been working with the play of Cutter Boley, and the defense has been pretty solid this whole year. So I think it's just sticking to what they know and hoping that they can come out with some type of win.
I think I said on this show before the Auburn-Kentucky game that the loser would probably not have a coach come the next day, and that did end up being true. And unfortunately for Hugh Freeze, that he was the loser in that scenario. But then for Kentucky to come out and pretty much destroy Florida right after that start of that 3-game win streak, do you think Mark Stoops has coached himself off the hot seat for this year and he'll return next year?
I think he's headed in the right direction. Obviously, the buyout is the big thing as to why he hasn't been fired and all of those things. But, at Kentucky, if we're being honest, what you need to do is go to a bowl game, win 6 games, and beat Louisville. If you do that, you're in a good spot. And so he could do that. He could win 6 games. That could happen in these next 2 games. And you still have Louisville, of course, on the road. Any rivalry is always a tough matchup, and it's always up in the air. But I believe if he wins 6 games and beats Louisville, why would you fire him at that point? It's kind of like you've done what you've needed to do. It almost looked bad at that point, I think. And then, of course, if you lose out these 2 games and don't make a bowl, then I believe, yes, he is still on the hot seat for sure.
Absolutely. The beginning of the season, something that struck me was the comments around Mark Stoops. And it almost felt like the internet was making fun of him a little bit, saying motivated Mark Stoops and all of that as far as it relates. And honestly, at that point, before the winning streak, it felt like he could have just given up on this team and given up on this season and given up on this fan base that was making fun of him early on. What does this late run say about what he is as a coach, whether he keeps this job or not? Because I agree with your standards. He needs to reach a certain threshold, and probably winning one of the next 2 will help do that. But his overall standing to you as it relates to the way this team is playing towards the end of the year is what?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Mark Stoops because he could have broke in a lot of different spaces throughout this season. The whole fan base was against him. The whole country talking about him. Every press conference, everything he was at, it was always I'm not going to flinch. This team loves each other. We're going to get better every single day. And he had that. That's exactly what has happened. You have not seen any emotions from him. You haven't even seen a lot of sadness, a lot of anything. And the players even have come out and said, when we lost against Tennessee and we're 2-5, it's the same Mark Stoops when we just blew out Florida.
Yeah.
He is who he is. He's been doing this for a long time, so this also isn't his first rodeo. But I have a lot of respect because he has just been. He's known what this team is capable of. He's stuck with them. They've stuck with him. They love him. If you hear their press conferences, this team really loves Mark Stoops, and so it makes sense that exactly what they've said, they've done.
Colby, I don't want to overlook the Vanderbilt game, but I mean, as you mentioned, as long as Stoops can get to a bowl game, win the bowl game, beat Louisville, then he'll keep his job. Well, they've got Louisville next week. And do you think there's going to be a little bit of added motivation with the whole Vince Marrow leaving for Louisville this past offseason?
Absolutely. I think coach speak, they're never going to come out
Right.
loud and say, just like when he left, it was all love him. He's been great. This is part of the business. You move on. It is what it is. But I think underneath all the hard coach come out to the media part, there's probably certainly some extra motivation. And at the end of the day, it's Louisville. That's your rival. It's one of the greatest rivalries in the history of college sports. And so I definitely think there's going to be some extra emotions going into that one for sure.
Absolutely. Stoops' defense is getting ready for Diego Pavia and putting an end to this Heisman campaign. Here's the coach.
In some ways it does. But in others, when plays break down, there's no coaching that, on either side. There is, as far as plastering, finishing coverage, finishing rushes, of course you could coach and build on that. But when these quarterbacks create, man, they just create. And the things that Diego does, that's, again, you've heard me say it many times, but that's between him and God.
Between him and God.
Yeah, between him and God is what he said there at the end. And I love Stoops is like just the way he carries himself. Whether it's a big game, whether it's an FCS opponent, he kind of carries himself in the same way. This is one of the first times, actually probably the first time ever, where the Kentucky-Louisville football game comes after the Kentucky-Louisville basketball game. Is there any sense of, hey, let's get some revenge for our basketball brethren?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, everyone, when you think Kentucky, you think Kentucky basketball. That's just how it goes. But at the end of the day, when you're a fan for anything. And especially when it comes to a rivalry, whether it's women's golf, men's golf, lacrosse, whatever, you name it, they want to beat you. That's just how it goes. So I definitely think there'll be some extra motivation. And I think Louisville fans will definitely be feeding off that basketball win in the stadium, probably chirping a little bit. Deservingly so. That was a great game for sure.
You're the first Kentuckian from the Bluegrass State that I've had the ability to ask this to. What was the overall sense of the basketball game being played so early? Because I've been in the area late December. Everybody's geared up. It's right after Christmas, getting ready for Kentucky-Louisville basketball, right before New Year's, right before New Year's Eve. What was the general consensus with it being so early in the calendar this year?
I can tell you no one liked it.
Yeah.
No one liked it that it was that early. No one liked it that it was a Tuesday night. There was a lot of people complaining about that one. And you also, have your ordinary argument of, well, this team doesn't know who they are yet. It's so early. So, we're going to play Louisville in the tournament, and then they'll see like who we really are. But just in general, from beat writers here who have been, covering Kentucky for 20 plus years, they even were pretty thrown off by the decision. But I ultimately think it comes down to TV and money and all the that go into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Colby, you've been awesome. Thank you so much for your time today here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Colby Wilson.